You are taxed on a market value. There's two parts of a property tax. It starts with a market value with your assessor. Once that value is established for the year, all values in your school district are then evaluated and looked at through the lenses of your taxing jurisdictions, the people that are going to get these tax dollars. They look at that final valuation for your school district to determine, okay, well, this is how much money we need to fund what we want done. So school districts is your biggest one. I'm going to just go with school districts. They look at the numbers, and if the funding is not there through the valuation side, they're going to readjust their tax rate to make it fit their budget. So my job, let's say my hometown of Blanchard, I assessed everything, went through protests. Everybody's happy. I have no outstanding protests. I finalized values in June to the state. That's when everybody starts looking at their city's numbers. So Blanchard would look at their specific school district numbers, and let's say it's $80 million of assessed valuation. We're not talking taxes. We're talking what your town is worth, what your school district is worth. They look at that, and with their current tax rate that they have, $80 million is not enough to fund what they need. So they get budget makers to look at it, bond makers to look at it. They readjust their tax rates if the funding is not there for the year, and they up that tax rate. So then it levies more on the value, so they generate more property taxes to fund what they need for that year.
Were there ever in Blanchard, did the school district ever make do with what they had? Did they ever not feel like they needed more money?
That's a hard one to answer because I have only been here for a decade. I've been here for 10 years. Every year since I've lived here, even before I was an assessor, property values have increased pretty much every year. 15, 16, 17, every year, the price for a house has increased. It probably was $100 a square foot. Today, a house sells for almost $200 a square foot. It's hard because every year that means off the top, automatically, just because property value has increased, school districts do not have to raise their tax rate because they're getting enough of it through the increase or the growth of their cities. Does that make sense? And Blanchard has boomed. So every year, more rooftops off the top means schools get more money before they even look at a budget.
Don't you think that automatically could set up a partnership, if you will, between contractors and the school?
Yes. And
because if I can put in more buildings, if I put in more homes, I over here get more money.
Yes, it does. It helps every party involved, of course. More houses, more businesses, more money for schools.
When does it ever get to be enough? At what point does a home that took $50,000 to build becoming a $500,000 home really help anybody but the school district?
Because every time that valuation is reassessed, a 3% increase on your value from the year before can take place. It's not a tax 3% annually. It's a valuation 3% annually.
So that's the cap on your valuation annually, right?
Yes.
Is only 3%.
It's only 3%. And people get that confused with a market value. Your market is your market. We are just appraisers at the end of the day. So if I appraise your house for $500,000 and last year the market said it was only worth $400,000, I create every year a notice and I mail those out as the assessor, right? You get a notice from the assessor in the spring to protest if you disagree with the value. But when I send those notices out, there's two numbers. It's the actual number that we say your house is worth, $500,000. Then we show what you previously were valued at, $400,000. And then we show you what your taxes currently are going to be based on with that 3% annual increase. So 400,000 times 3%, whatever that number is, that is what, it's not 500,000 you're going to be taxed at. It's the 400,000 plus the 3%. So probably $411,000.
Okay.
Or whatever 3% is. Let me hit what you said though. You're like, when does it stop? It doesn't stop. It's perpetual. And this is why property tax is so dangerous compared to a sales tax or income tax, because it requires a little bit of responsibility, at least in my opinion. Sales tax, income tax, annually, you have to predict the future, what's going to happen. You're not budgeting anything on the hopes that it's going to keep increasing year over year. You have to be fiscally responsible a little bit, because we know Oklahoma, we know oil and gas isn't always there. That's not happening with a property tax anymore. It is just, they know the money's there. They know they're going to get an increase annually through the valuation. And even if they don't, they have the option to raise a tax rate to suffice. So let's say the property market crashes next year, and I assessed everything last year at 80 million. And now I say Blanchard Public School District is only worth 40 million. Well, they're going to see that loss in value, and they're going to say, guys, we still have outstanding debt. We still have bills to pay. We still have everything that we still owe. We're going to have to jack up a tax rate in order to make the same money that we made the year before with that $80 million valuation. So they can come in and they can look at it and say, well, the valuation's not there, guys. We're going to have to raise the tax rate so we can tax these people at the same amount again to pay for everything that we paid for last year. Everyone yells at me at the Capitol even right now. Some of my legislators are like, well, you should just lower the value of everything. You shouldn't have to follow the law and be a market value. And I was like, I love that theory, but if I cut the valuation in half, I don't determine the taxes. Like, no one can wrap their mind around that. I just set values, and then the jurisdictions get a hold of it and say, that's not enough value, so we're going to raise the tax rate.